the Dhamma talk instead, because we're running a bit late. It's only half an hour and 50 minutes for some questions. Is that okay? Very good. The reason is because I know that very often people say it's very hard to listen to the Dhamma because there's so many rites and rituals in Buddhism, and chanting is one of them. Chanting has a meaning. If you really understand the words, it's very, very powerful teachings. But so often the teachings are more important. And I still remember in our local university in Western Australia, the professor of physics, who I got to know very well, he said he went to Thailand as a young man, really wanting to understand the Dhamma, but every temple he went to, he had found no one he could actually talk to teach him some Dhamma. There was no real talks available. And that's all he had was ceremonies, bowing, putting donations in, chanting, but he really couldn't get to understand what the Dhamma is. It's from that I made the comment that in some places you can't see the Buddha through the incense smoke. The incense smoke is so thick, the rituals, the rites, that people can't understand what is this wonderful teaching which many people are turning to in our modern world called the Dhamma. So because of that, I do prefer, instead of doing too much chanting, if we haven't got the time, do more teaching. And of course, today is Vesak celebration. Yeah, the full moon day was last Wednesday, but we always try and hold the Vesak ceremony on the closest Sunday possible. So usually that one Sunday I have to do over in Perth and the other one over here in Melbourne. I've been doing this for years and years and years and years and years and years and years. And it's nice to see all the old familiar faces again. And even though I've been celebrating this Vesak for such a long time, I always make sure that I inspire myself so I can inspire other people. And just to really contemplate what we're doing here. This is not an empty ceremony. It's something which is really, really powerful. And I recalled, I think I saw this in the Visuddhimagga a long time ago, a story of a Vesak in Sri Lanka such a long time ago, many centuries ago. And apparently in a village close to Anuradhapura, next in Anuradhapura had these huge stupas. I think it's the Ruwaneliya stupa. Yeah, there's a few there anyway. They're huge. And on one of the Vesak nights, it was illuminated by all the oil lamps and also by the full moon. And there was a poor woman who was in a village maybe 5 or 6 miles away. And she couldn't get there. But she saw in the distance the glow of all the lights on this great stupa. And seeing that, she got so much inspiration, so much piti coming up inside her body, that made her huge amounts of happiness and power, that she literally rose into the air and flew to that great stupa for Vesak night. And I read that while I was studying theoretical physics at Cambridge University. But nevertheless, despite all my science background, I allowed myself to get inspired and thought, why not? That probably did happen, because the power of inspiration is huge. And this is one of the things which we come to a Vesak celebration for, to get that inspiration, that emotion of happiness. Sometimes people come to listen to a Dhamma talk and they feel they're going to get more information, more ideas to add to the encyclopedia of ideas and knowledge which we already have in our brain. But instead of just having more knowledge and more ideas, it's great to be able to have inspiration as well, things which really uplift you and give your life some happiness and meaning, And this Vesak day is one of those times. Sometimes, again, as a Westerner, always just focusing just on logic. Sometimes many of my experiences in life defy logic. It seems that there's other things happening as well. And that inspiration is one of those. You look back on some of the stories of Vesak, celebrating first of all the birth of the Lord Buddha. And it's one of those stories, even though it's central to the story of the Buddha's enlightenment, of the Buddha as soon as he was born, walking and saying, speaking, when he'd just been a few minutes outside of the womb. And for many years I thought that that was just some of the myths which grow up around a religion like Buddhism and around a spiritual leader like the Buddha, until in all the years I've been a monk, I have encountered many strange things, and people who tell me stuff which I've known for such a long time. You cannot doubt that they're telling you something which really happened. And the first time I encountered babies who could speak was when two Caucasians, they weren't Buddhists, but they had to tell somebody about the experience they had with their second son. And they came to the Buddhist monks because we were the obvious people to try and get some explanation from. Because the wife had just given birth to the second son and just come back home from hospital and had their second baby just in we used to call them cots, whatever it is you put a baby in, to send them to sleep at night, in the lounge room. They told their older son, Peter, say good night to your little brother and then go to bed. And I do get the names wrong, but I think it was Peter and Paul. Could be something else, but it doesn't really matter. Those are just details. So Peter went over to his baby brother Paul. Good night, Paul, he said as he leant over his only maybe few days old baby brother. At which point his baby brother said, good night, Peter. And with both parents shocked, did we imagine this? Is this real? Can a few days old baby actually talk? They stared in disbelief. Without any prompting, their older son, Peter, said once more, good night, Paul. And this time, with both of them paying full attention, the mother and father staring, heard their baby son say again, good night, Peter. And they were so freaked out, as they say, so spooked. The next opportunity they came to see me and say what had happened. And they said, we have to tell you because everyone else will think we're crazy. And because I told that story, one of the reasons I tell stories like that is because other people come up afterwards and they say, yes, that happened to us too. But we didn't dare tell anybody because they would think we too had gone crackers. Several people have told me that. Babies talking. So if ordinary babies can sometimes talk, of course the best case, which was quite well documented in a maternity ward in the USA. And the baby came out of the mother's womb. Only, I don't know if they'd even cut the umbilical cord yet. And it looked around and spoke in front of everybody in the maternity room, whatever it's called, the immortal words, "Oh no, not again." That's what it said. And I thought, wow, what a smart thing to say. If you're going to say anything, that shows some wisdom. Oh no, not again. Because think about it. Have you finished with school yet? No. Have you finished going to university? No. You've got to do it all over again. Oh no. You finished with being on the committee yet? Oh no, not again. So that was immortal. But that started wondering, maybe that was true. And all the skepticism of a Western trained scientist started to fade away. Maybe these things do happen. A special being born who's going to be something that powerful that we're still celebrating the birthday today all over the world. Maybe there was something superhuman happening. We have, when I go on these flights, you look at sort of some of the in-flight magazines, have all of these movies these days about superheroes. And what do? They just go fight one another, blow up the world, creating more damage than they actually save, all violent, and they never really achieve very much. But someone like a Buddha gets born, and that is powerful. That's the original superhero. So all you kids, don't get Superman costumes, not Spider-Man costumes, not Batman costumes. Get a Buddha costume, the original superhero, just like me and the monks. This is the superheroes of our modern age. And it is true, because some of the stuff which you can inspire people to do and to achieve, not through violence, but through something much more powerful. And that is so true, because on the Buddha's enlightenment, the second thing which we are celebrating today, did the Buddha gain his powers by training in a hidden monastery in the Himalayas for many years? Did the Buddha come from another planet, Krypton? Did the Buddha was Spider-Man? I used to read his comics as a kid. He got bitten by a spider. Did any of those things confer superpowers to the Buddha? And how the Buddha gained his superpowers was sitting under a tree, being perfectly still. Not through force, not through aggression, not through some nuclear accident, through something which makes it possible for everyone here to do as well, to sit down and be perfectly still. For so many years, I continue, like many other good monks and nuns teach, the real wisdom, the stuff which is enlightenment is made of, the real wisdom is born of stillness, not striving, not thinking, not logic, not experiments performed in laboratories, but stillness performed inside of the human mind. And for people who don't understand what I'm talking about, I usually give a very simple simile. If you go up into the mountains, especially this time of year when the sky is clear and the full moon is in the sky, if you go up in the mountains and you find a mountain lake, and you sit next to that mountain lake and you look at the waters, if there are any waves on that lake, if a wind is blowing to whip up even ripples, you will never see a perfect reflection of the moon and the stars in the waters of that lake. The image will be distorted. That is like trying to find some wisdom with a mind which is agitated, which is thinking, like looking in a lake which has got waves on the surface. Even when that lake has got big waves, when it's choppy, then you've got even less chance of seeing the reflection of the universe, the truth. But if you're fortunate enough to be up in the mountains on a still night, without any wind, where everything is just so calm, when it feels like the universe itself has stopped for you, when nothing moves, and you gaze into the waters of the lake, it acts like a glass mirror, and you see a perfect reflection of everything which is in the sky above you. Not just the moon, but the stars as well. And even on the edges of the lake, the images of the forest surrounding the lake. A perfect reflection only when the lake is still. And according to Joseph Campbell, the person who interpreted the cultural imagery and symbols of just about all cultures, it is the symbol of a body of water, a lake or a pond, has always reappeared as a metaphor for the human mind. Only when your human mind is perfectly still can you see a reflection of the truth, and that's what the Buddha did. On the gardens, on the banks of the Nirangala River, in Uruwela it was called, before it became Bodh Gaya. You know, Bodh is short for Bodhi. The Buddha hadn't become enlightened yet. He had another name in those days. And for those of you who've been to that place on pilgrimage, first of all you should notice that this was not a jungle full of mosquitoes and wild animals. This was a park next to the river. It will be like the Domain in Sydney. It will be like botanical gardens on the banks of the Yarra. A beautiful place, calm, peaceful and comfortable, where you can imagine the breezes will be flowing over the river to cool everything down, where it was quiet and peaceful, where you could find a nice shady tree to sit under, and that tree became known as the Bodhi tree. Comfortable, secluded, a great place for your mind to become still. And I always point that out to Buddhists who want to meditate. You don't go to difficult places to meditate. You go to comfortable, peaceful places where your body can be at ease, so your mind can also become still. And in that stillness, huge energies arise. First of all, the energy which comes, which is generated from stillness. It is as if that you have a source of mental energy in you, but that gets used and wasted by thinking too much. That gets destroyed on trying to fix up a past which is unfixable. It's happened. Or trying to anticipate a future which hardly ever happens as you expected. So we waste so much energy on pointless things. But instead, we become still. And when the mind doesn't move, all that energy builds and builds and builds. Just like collecting the power of the sun in a magnifying glass. It builds up energies. And that energy you feel when you meditate and get to stillness. You literally wake up out of the dullness of the ordinary life. You become alive, clear, powerful mindfulness. And that's what would have happened to the Buddha. And that power, that energy, still lingers on in those places. Any of you who visited those places, today you can shut your eyes and you can imagine yourself back there. Powerful, peaceful, still resonating with the echoes of what happened 26 centuries ago. When I go there, it's so easy to meditate. Sometimes people complain, there's so much chanting, so much activity, people coming in, taking photographs, I don't know what they do these days. So much noise, but it doesn't matter. You don't need to pay attention to the noise. You can pay attention to the stillness, which is there instead. And I still remember one of my followers, an English lady, who she became a Buddhist basically because her husband decided to become a Buddhist. She followed him. And she came on one of those pilgrimages to India with me. And before you go on those pilgrimages, we have orientation first of all, where we tell people some of the rules, what to do, what not to do, what to expect. And when it came time for me to give my little orientation, I said that some of these places you will visit are not ordinary places. These are powerful places. And I say some of you will feel that power. Even though I know what to expect, some of those places, I can't help myself. So much piti comes up, so much joy. I cry. Crying is not a bad thing when it's for joy, when it's inspiration. It's one of the forms of religious exhilaration, if you like. Incredible, powerful joy, which you should encourage. So I said, beware. You may feel that joy yourself. And this woman, she was English woman, and she thought once again, Ajahn Brahm is crazy monk. These are only old ruins. She was born in England. There's so many ruins in England. Old castles, Stonehenge, thousands of years old. You don't cry when you go to these ruins. Maybe only after you have to pay the entrance fee, which is exorbitant. Other than that. But the first night she came to ask forgiveness of me. The first day we got into the Mahabodhi temple. And she just was thinking just another old ancient ruin. But as soon as she went in there, a new Buddhist, someone who hadn't been born into the culture, only really got into it because her husband was a Buddhist. As soon as she walked in, I don't know if that's very good acting. Probably not. I don't think I'd get a place on the ABC. But she wept and wept and wept, totally unanticipated and uncontrollable. Beautiful tears of inspiration. And she hadn't got a clue where that came from. Except she remembered I'd warned her about it. And so that's why she came to say sorry. I was right. Because these are inspiring places. There's energies of not Dhamma of arguing about what is dependent origination, is jhana necessary, all this other stuff we waste too much time on instead of actually practicing it, but actually getting that inspiration up inside of you, which is so powerful. Therapeutic. People cure themselves on these sorts of things. And it's not just something which, you have the gospel singers in the south get inspired, so they really go a bit crazy. Buddhists should get crazy like that as well. Get the inspiration coming up, the joy, the power, which is very hard to put into words of what happened there. And so that's why today you can remember, those of you who've been there, remember what it was like. Remember just what happened. And for me to think that what happened there, not through violence, not through crucifixion or death, just for doing one of the most calm and quiet and silent things a human being can ever do. Just cross your legs, close your eyes and be still and peaceful. The power which emanated from that simple act of stillness and calm not only resonates in Bodh Gaya, but resonates wherever you go in the world, where you see a Buddha statue, you come together for a Vesak celebration. It might not be the exact day, but that doesn't matter. We're focusing on something incredible which happened. And from that time on, you know that the Buddha said that after he became enlightened, just sat there for 7 days without moving. I can understand that. The joy, the power of happiness means you don't need to worry about your health. Joy and happiness is an immense. Those of you who are in the medical profession, it's a shame that the research done by Patch Adams was not taken further. How many doctors here go and see your patients with a red nose on your face? Who tell jokes to the patients with cancer? Male doctors who can wear a tutu when you walk along the wards. To bring some joy and some fun and some happiness. Because that fun and happiness, that inspiration is huge power. Not just to heal sicknesses, but to give meaning into a life where a lot of time people lack meaning. You only have to look at news to see how negative the world becomes. Donald Trump, North Korea, Syria, economy, housing, collapse or whatever it is. People are just so worried. You knock one disease, you cure another disease comes afterwards. I was telling a person, if you're looking, just a few minutes ago, if you're looking for a profession with job security, even the IT industry doesn't offer you job security because it changes so fast. Even in finance, it changes so fast. There's 2 jobs where you can have total job security. Of course, the Sangha is the first. We'd always have job security. But the second is undertakers. There's always a lot of business for people in that industry. But we can get so negative, it's great to find the inspirational happinesses, which when you listen to some of that Dhamma, is so moving. It's not something you have to wait until you get to die before you can check out whether you got the right religion or not, or the right type of Buddhism or not, or the right type of Theravada or not, or the right teaching in the right type of Theravada or not. You don't have to wait. You can just experiencing it right now. And as a scientist, that's what I enjoyed about Buddhism. You can sit down and test it out. Find out if it works. And you, each one of you, can touch the same Dhamma as the Buddha touched. Male, female, irrelevant. Old, young, irrelevant. There was a young Sumana, the novice, only 7 years of age. And he was on arms round, and the Buddha saw some of the monks pulling his ear and hit him on the head, just teasing the young 7-year-old novice. And after the Buddha saw that, he called a meeting. Monks, come over here. You don't know whose ear you were pulling and whose head you were knocking. That was a great enlightened being. Only 7 years of age. He's got incredible psychic powers. He just didn't need to use them on you. And that's where the Buddha gave the story of the 4 small things to be wary of. The small prince who can one day become a great monarch and remember how you treated them, and then you're in big trouble. Just like, if ever you met Kim Jong-un when he was at school. Now, if you'd mistreat him, you're in big trouble. Or the small fire, which we all know in Australia. A tiny little fire can destroy so many homes and so many hundreds and thousands of acres of forest. The small snake, which is still very venomous. And the last thing was the small monk or nun. They too can have amazing powers. Just so young, and they could become fully enlightened. As for old, sometimes people say, should you have an age limit for ordination? Only ordain people under 50. But I say, no way. Because there was a story of this man, 120 years of age, and he finally decided to become a monk. So some of you, there's hope for you yet. 120 he ordained. A couple of months later, he became fully enlightened, and a couple of months later, he passed away. I call that leaving it to the last moment, but at least he got there. So young, old, women, everybody, no distinction between race, as long as you're a human being. You can do it. And to me that was inspiring. And there were some people who were really stupid, and they could do it. Deformed like Bada the dwarf, he could do it. Angulimala, he could become enlightened, the serial killer. Bhattacharya, who was psychotic when she came to see the Buddha, she could do it. And I say Bhattacharya because I know in some temples they have dress code. They say anyone in miniskirt must not come in because it might corrupt the monks. What about the nuns? You should have a similar dress code for guys. But what are you talking about, a dress code? Bhattacharya was so mad and crazy. She came in with nothing on, totally naked, came into the presence of the Buddha. And did the people there say, get out, you can't come in here? The Buddha said, no, come in. One of the monks took off his robe and put it around her. And the Buddha taught her the Dhamma, and she became one of the greatest nuns ever, the greatest teacher, for where she came from. For those of you who start to wonder about my teaching of the, treading in the dog poo and digging it under your mango tree or apple tree so your apples are sweeter than ever before. I tell that every year, so I'm not going to repeat it again. Probably will, but not now. So, that was her. She had so much dog poo. It sent her crazy, but she dug that in. And she became such an incredibly wise, powerful person. So that enlightenment experience, anybody literally can do this. And to me that was, the doors of enlightenment are open, wide open. Talking about that, I was in Hong Kong a couple of months ago, and I was invited to address the Ministry of Health, the health department. And when I went in there, they said, "What are you doing here? You're not a doctor." And I said, "I am." "What do you mean you're a doctor?" I said, "I, Ajahn Brahm, I am a heart surgeon." "What do you mean?" "Look, I wrote a bestseller, Opening the Door of Your Heart." Unlike other doctors, you close the heart after you've opened it. I leave it open forever. So they took that on board and let me in. But what a wonderful thing it is, just how open this is. But the best part of Vesak, what is the place which so many people, they don't realize that it was the most powerful place of all, Kusinara. The place where the Buddha ended samsara. Beforehand, it's called, like many of the great monks and nuns in the time of the Buddha, in the Therigatha, when they told what it was like to practice, to go through their difficulties and finally break through and become fully enlightened. Great stories to read. These are real people which you can identify with. Strangely, the world hasn't changed. There was, I remember one part of I forget where it was now, but a monk was on alms round in one of the cities. And he was just wandering wherever. He went down a little lane he'd never been through before, and he appeared in the area behind the law courts of one of the cities. And there he saw the judges and some of the plaintiffs exchanging cash. Corruption. 26 centuries ago. Some things never change. And it's a wonderful little snapshot of a society so long ago. Things do not change. People change. The names change. A few things in the culture change, but the general stuff which goes on in your house today went on in those little villages in Sri Lanka when you were born, and they've been going on for years in all cultures. Those people who became enlightened were no different than you. That's powerful. No different at all. And in the end, when the Buddha, 45 years of teaching, and I have to say this because if you haven't heard this before, I'm sure you have, this is why we have Venerable Upeka here as well. After the Buddha's enlightenment under the Bodhi tree, this Mara, the control freak, he is the head of the Paranimitta Vasawati realm, those heavenly beings who control others, the control freak in chief of the universe. That's why you hear me saying, those who control others are part of Mara's army. If you control yourself, it's Mara. We follow another way. Let it be. Everything your willpower promised you through control, you achieve and experience when you don't control at all. Just let it be. But anyway, Mara came up to the Buddha and said, "Okay, I give in, you're enlightened, well done." So plan B. His plan A was to try and stop the Buddha becoming enlightened. Plan B, if he does become enlightened, let's make sure he doesn't teach anybody else. We can't allow this to spread. So he said, it's too difficult teaching others. They will always argue and find fault with you. And the Buddha was right. So difficult teaching others. Isn't that so, Venerable Paker? Isn't that so venerable? Oh, it's a big headache. How many monks have you got in your temple? In Sri Lanka, yeah. 13. Oh, I've got 27. Big heck. Do you want some? Can I get rid of a few?
Who wants to go to your monastery?
Yeah. Oh, come on. Give me a break. So, the Buddha said, look, just live a nice peaceful life and just pass away. And the Buddha said, no, I will not pass away until I've established a fourfold assembly. Until I've established a strong, flourishing bhikkhu sangha with many arahats. Until I've established a strong, flourishing bhikkhuni sangha with many enlightened nuns. Until I've established a strong lay Buddhist following of men and lay Buddhist following of women, the upasaka and upasikas. When I've done that, then I will pass away. And at the Chapala shrine and Vaisali, outside of Vaisali, 3 months before the parinirvana, Mara came to see the Buddha again and said, what you promised me under the Bodhi tree, you've achieved. And the Buddha acknowledged that. A very strong bhikkhu sangha, bhikkhuni sangha, hundreds of thousands of lay Buddhist men and women attaining things. And we said, yeah, you're right, so I'll pass away. And 3 months later, he entered parinirvana. Sometimes people forget, after the Buddha's enlightenment, he did have a mission. He did have a goal. He did have a sales target, which he reached. And it included bhikkhunis. So now, he was done. And 3 months later, he passed away. Forever. Gone. Looking for similes. And this has to be the end of the talk, because it's 9:30. Sometimes as a scientist, trying to find a simile, it's like some of the shooting stars you can see in the night sky. Those shooting stars are pieces of ice and rock, little meteors, which have been circling around our solar system, not for hundreds of years, not even hundreds of thousands, for hundreds of millions of years, going round and round and round and round, just like human and other beings, going round and round samsara, the cycle, the wheel of life and death, round and round and round, so many times as to become uncountable. So many times you've been born and died, many times, in all different forms of life. And when you see that meteor in the night sky, finally, it's met the atmosphere of a planet. And when it hits that atmosphere, it burns up this beautiful light, this glow in the night sky, which lasts even up to a few minutes, usually only a few seconds. The enlightened being, ending its final rounds around samsara, meets the Dhamma, understands the Eightfold Path, and becomes a brilliant beacon in the night sky, in the darkness, for thousands of other beings. and then it disappears forever. The Arahat, lighting up the Buddha 45 years, some longer, some lesser, and then vanishing forever. Wow. Ajahn Charles used to say he likes the ending of things, not ending and starting again. That's my life. I give a talk here. There's always another talk tomorrow. And people say, oh, you can go back to Perth now and take a rest. What are you talking about? As soon as I get back to Perth, another talk. It was my last few days. Talk it was on Tuesday night in Canberra, Wednesday night again in Canberra, Thursday night in Perth, Thursday night in Bodhinyana Monastery, Friday night in Dhammaloka, Saturday night, that was last night, in Melbourne, another talk. Every night I give a talk. And even if I do have a free night, I'm pretty sure I talk in my sleep. I just get used to it. So, finally, the last talk, the last breath, not another breath, not, oh no, here we go again. Finish once and for all, the ending of things. And that's what happened at Kusinara. That's where enlightenment, the end of the samsara, actually happened. Under the Bodhi tree, that was just where all the causes of rebirth had been destroyed. And now rebirth had totally ceased. As it says in the suttas, like a workman or a workwoman waiting for their wages. You finish the task, the job has been done, but you haven't get paid yet. That is parinirvana. That's what happened at Kusinara. That was living up to the promise, the ending of all things. Wow, that is awesome. Thank you. Okay, so we've got the kiddies coming in, or do you want a question first of all?
Kiddies coming in.
Kiddies coming in. Okay, these are the future arahats coming in.
We now invite the children from the Sunday school to come in and offer the flowers to the Buddha.
Here they come. Very good. Excellent. Very good. Yes. Yeah. Especially about the talk earlier, about Vesak Day. Yes. Because actually that's what the Buddha said, not just to have Dhamma discourses, that's called Dhamma Savanang, but Dhamma Sakacha, which is questions and answers. Hi.
Hi. Thank you, Ajahn Brahm, for the lovely talk. You mentioned that let things be and not to be control freak. How about self-restraint? How does that work with the control freak?
If the self-restraint is coming from the sense of self, you will find, as the Buddha said, it's like a dog chasing its tail. You will never be able to achieve that. So what do you want self-restraint to achieve? What is its goal? And the goal of self-restraint is not harming another person or harming yourself. A lot of time it's a control freak. Get out of my way. I'm practicing self-restraint. In other words, you find that it is counter the reasons why you wanted to do self-restraint in the first place. So self-restraint comes from what we call renouncing the sense of self, renunciation, letting go, abandoning, giving up. That is how we practice self-restraint. The problem is our wanting and craving, which knows no limits. You can see a good example in that in Donald Trump. Why on earth does he want to become the president? Actually, did you hear about the assassination attempt on Donald Trump? You heard that one, did you? Because apparently he was in a meeting recently and an assassin stood up and pulled a gun and pointed at Donald Trump to shoot him. And one of the security guards shouted out, "Donald, duck!" And the assassin couldn't help laughing. And he couldn't pull the trigger because he was laughing too much. Donald Duck. That's a joke for the kids. But you will find that when we do let go of wanting, and Donald Trump, why does he want to become a president? He's got so much money. What more does he want? There's no end of wanting if we just follow wanting. So what actually Donald wants is more control. That's why he becomes a president. And that controlling, a form of wanting, knows no end. So all the things you try to achieve through controlling, what you think is self-restraint, is actually counterproductive. You become more angry, more of the pain in the backside for other people. When you learn how to let go, otherwise known as compassion, opening the door of your heart to yourself and others, then what you are abandoning is such things as craving, wanting. You're abandoning your ill will to people who stand in the way of your goals. You're actually letting go. The self, what we take to be the self, is actually born out of control. The more you want, the more you strive, the stronger your sense of ego and self becomes. When you let go, when you are kind, your sense of self starts to vanish and disappear. That's why controlling and striving just makes a bigger sense of self. It's not restraining it at all. But you let go, you're kind, compassionate, gentle, and then you find your sense of ego and self vanishes more and more and more. You are subduing that self which causes controlling. That's what self-restraint means. Restraining the self from doing too much, from controlling.
Are there any more questions?
Yes, in the back, there is somebody. Ah, there, yeah. Always get good questions from this young lady. Hi.
Bhante,
Good to see you still here. Haven't died
you
yet.
said that certain places which are spiritually powerful give energy to certain individuals. Now, does that mean these individuals also have powerful spiritual energy within them to be able to feel this, the joy and the peace?
Yeah, you're talking about the sort of spiritual power places in the world. It is true that you have to have some sensitivity there for it to resonate with you. You have to tune into it. But sometimes the people think they aren't spiritually sensitive and it really hits them. The hall at the monastery where I live, we've been there for 33, 34 years now. We've had some great monks and nuns who have meditated in that hall. We've got some great relics in there as well. That is powerful. 2 or 3 years ago, one of my disciples, a Chinese, brought her Feng Shui master to Bodhinyana Monastery. I wasn't there at the time, which happens quite often. And they took him into the hall. And that Feng Shui master, quite accurately said, "This has got huge Feng Shui power, especially in the front of the hall, not so much in the back, but it's incredible powerful." And that's so true. Even in the early years, that because part of being a monk in our modern age is not just teaching the Dhamma, studying the Dhamma, it's also building as well, as Venerable Peka knows by first-hand experience. And we had a Australian concrete worker, just typical fat, wearing thongs, just really loud, quite dirty, and he was doing some concrete work for us, making the water tanks. And he's a really nice guy, but just really loud and, what they call like ochre Australian. And when he'd finished, he said, "Can I look inside your church?" he's called it. I said, "Yeah, sure." So he came inside, and it was covered with cement all over. And I took him inside. He said, "I should have taken off my shoes." I said, no need to. Just poke your head into the hall. And all the way there he was talking and chatting and talking. He didn't stop. But as soon as he put his head inside that hall, he felt so quiet. And he really shut up. I've never seen him be so quiet for so long. And after about 3 or 4 minutes, he put his head out and said, "God blimey, this is good." It was his way. Something touched him inside that hall, some silence, some peace, some energy, which, he didn't want to bring his head out again. He was enjoying it so much. And even someone like that, no sort of religious background, he could feel energies in places. So everyone has some sensitivity there. And that's one of the great joys of taking people on pilgrimage, to see some of the most unlikely people just pick up on that energy and start crying for no reason at all, getting so inspired. It's great seeing that. Of course, some people block it. They feel inspiration coming up and say, "No, I shouldn't cry. I'm a monk, I'm tough, I shouldn't cry." But those are the people that are blocking a beautiful part of the Dhamma, inspiration and joy and happiness. So if that happens, just let it come. Cry your eyes out.
So these people who feel that frequently, does that mean that they're going forwards?
They're going
Forwards in the Dhamma?
Yeah, absolutely. Because you just look at Anapanasati Sutta. The 5th and 6th stages of Anapanasati are developing piti and sukha. It's right there in the teachings. Once you've got some sampasadana that sampasadana is like some confidence and faith. The next thing is piti. Joy comes up. Buddha kept on saying that again and again and again. The joy, the inspiration. Sometimes they call it like Dhamma Veda, Atta Veda. Just the joy in hearing the Dhamma. Or just reflecting on its meaning. And so I sometimes wondered why sometimes, not always, sometimes like a teacher like Ajahn Chah could really hit the spot and tears came out. I said, "What's going on here? Is that supposed to happen?" And it's wonderful when you read the sutras. Yes, it's supposed to happen. Let it happen. It's very positive, part of the path, getting some inspiration and happiness up. And then when you really get into it, the sukha, when that comes up, Sukhino chitang samadhiyati, said the Buddha many, many, many times, which translates as, from happiness the mind becomes still. Such an important statement from the Buddha. You don't get still through misery, but there's beautiful happiness, peace, joy. It's delicious. And that's our path. Beautiful, happy path. Thank you for that question. Yeah.
So
So my question is that, we're so far away from India, from Western Australia, you're not here with us all the time. How do we able to keep up the aspiration?
Oh, it's so easy to do. What you do is you sit down. Have you been to Bodh Gaya before, to India? Have you actually seen it on a video? And you see it in a picture. There's many pictures here you can see. Sometimes it's many, many years since I went there. And sometimes I just close my eyes and I visualize it, imagine it. I can imagine it right now. Just the Bodhi tree with its railings and the Mahabodhi temple inside. You go in, there's stairs to the left and right going up to the upper chamber. You can visualize it. And once you visualize, you build up the picture and inspiration comes. You know today's Mother's Day? Later on today I'm going to visualize. My mother died 5 or 6 years ago. I got her already. You can visualize it. Visualize it. Let your mind linger on it. And all this incredible gratitude comes up. You know, just the sacrifice of a mother for her kids was huge. And I allow myself to linger on that. To linger and just let the mind, especially when it gets to be very emotional and beautiful emotion, then the mind just loves to stay there. And then I can show and appreciate and remember the sacrifice of a mother to her children. There's my mum. Just what she did for me. So often would give anything. And that sort of feeling there, you can develop. Just a little bit of meditation practice so you can focus and you can keep an idea in mind without attacking it with ideas and reason. This is stupid, I shouldn't do this. It's all those thoughts which keep on destroying things which are very beautiful and good. And you feel it. I gave a talk a few days ago, I think a week ago in Perth, ultimate reality. People thought, wow, that's interesting, but it's never what you expect. I said, ultimate reality is not a bunch of ideas or dogmas. It's emotions, feelings. Peace, freedom, it's not an idea. It's a feeling, an emotion, a mental state. So liberate your mind by feeling what liberation must feel like. Sometimes people in today's world are too cerebral, too much in their head, not enough in their heart. By which I mean to feel these things, instead of arguing about them. So feel like, imagine what Bodh Gaya must be like. And then keep it coming, paint the picture, and after you paint the picture you get inspiration. Does that make any sense? Oh yeah, come on, let's go for it. Yes. For the kids are much wiser than you imagine. So, for the kids, what makes you happy? What is happiness? In school, do you study maths? Do you study English? Do you study history? Do you study happiness? Isn't it important to know how to be happy? So how can you always be happy, no matter what happens? Are you always trying to do well at school? Are you trying to get good marks? Are you? This, you can remind your parents this. Any child who comes in the top 5% or the bottom 5% at school is not a good Buddhist. So if you're top of the class or bottom of the class, sorry, but you're not a good Buddhist. Good Buddhists, we believe in the middle way. If you come in the middle somewhere, that's the best. Do you get grades at school, A, B, C, D, E, F? Do you get graded? Did anyone ever tell you what those grades actually mean? What F means? F means fantastic. E means excellent. D means delightful. A means arrogant. Yeah, awful, yeah. Yeah?
What is the most enjoyable thing?
Most enjoyable thing is giving your mum a hug on Mother's Day. Well, Father's Day is another time, so wait till Father's Day. But any of you, especially, it's very unfair in our society because boys, they are preferred to girls. You know why? Today is Mother's Day, but it's also Sunday. So it's a day when your parents should be giving the sons some gifts. In fact, every week is Sunday. You only get a Father's Day once a year. Only get a Mother's Day once a year. You get a Son's Day every week. We don't get any Daughter Day. That's really unfair. So today is Sunday. Say, Mummy, Daddy, it's Sunday today. What makes you happy?
The main thing that makes me happy is being with my family.
Being with your family, yeah. It's really important. And how often are you with your family?
I'm not quite sure.
Not quite sure. One of my favourite stories was of the young boy, about 6 years of age, waiting for his father to come home from work. When his father finally came in, 6 or 7 o'clock in the evening, the little son said, Daddy, 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 how much do you earn at the office? And the father says, none of your business, son. But Daddy, how many dollars do you earn at work? Look, I told you I'm tired. Be quiet, none of your business. But Daddy, how many dollars and cents do you want? I told you 3 times, that's it. Up to your room, you're grounded. It's only because the father was very tired. And when you're tired, you get grumpy. So if ever you see your mum or dad really tired, don't ask them anything. Wait till they calm down. Because otherwise they'd always say no and get angry. It's not they don't love you, it's they're tired. So when the father had a cup of tea, he felt so bad he'd shouted at his son. So he went up to his son's room and said, I'm sorry for shouting at you. I was just tired from a very busy day at work. I don't know why you need to know this, but I earn $20 an hour at work. And the son smiled and said, thank you, Daddy. Now can I please borrow $10? And the father had already said no to his son enough times that evening. So he bit his lip and grudgingly took out his wallet and gave his son a $10 bill. Thank you, Daddy. And then the son opened the little drawer next to his bed and took out some coins, counted out another $10 in coins, making 20, and handed it to his father. Daddy, here's $20. Now can I please have 1 hour of your time? I've made many people cry when I told that story. What do your children want? She just said, likes having time with her mum and dad. That's all. And that's actually one place where that story came from. I go to Singapore a lot to teach. There was one really, really sad case. It was about 14 or 15-year-old young man who jumped off the balcony of one of the big high-rise buildings. And his suicide note was, all I wanted was to spend more time with my parents. And that was in the front page of the Straits Times. You can understand why. So parents, you've got the best will in the world. You just want to work hard to get your kids a good education, a comfortable life. But what your kids really need is not so much going to a good school, but just spending time with mum and dad. That's so important. Just Father's Day. One of my memories of my father was he had the afternoon off school, and I was really into playing soccer. He spent an afternoon being a goalkeeper while I was kicking the ball at him. And simple things like that, an hour he spent with me to try and encourage me to be a good soccer player. And that's what I remember. I don't remember the gifts he gave me for my birthdays or for Christmas. I remember the gift of 1 hour he gave to me in the local park. Still remember that. That's how you look after your kids. Spending time with them. Any other questions?
One last question.
Okay.
Yeah, one.
Oh, you got another, yes, yeah.
Thank you, Ajahn Brahm. I may ask you that it's not easy to be a monk, and some monk will do a few years and they disrobe.
Yeah.
And how do you think about that?
I think amazing, wonderful, well done. You've given it a try. Most men and women are too scared to even give it a try. They don't even get that far. You give it a go and you never lose from that. So much so. And this is true, I can't make these stories up. We do get several monks disrobing, because I've ordained so many. And as soon as a young monk disrobes in Perth, many of the young women get very excited. And the reason is because if you've been a monk for a few years, especially under me, they make wonderful husbands. I mean, they're really high quality husband material. So much so that the women have come to me after they've been married for a year or two to say, thank you, Ajahn Brahm, for training my man. He's such a wonderful husband after he's trained in a monastery for a few years. They know how to work. They know how to serve, because they have to train serving me and the senior monks. They learn how to cook, to clean, and just how to be very kind, peaceful husbands who don't argue. Wow, I mean, they're just gold standard husband material. That's absolutely true. Not just one. All these sort of people who disrobe and get married, the girls say, thank you for training my guy. So the point is that at least they've got something beautiful. Just training. Yeah, they may not make it all the way, but 2 or 3, 4 years, wonderful. You're giving it such a good try. And for some people it works, some people it doesn't work. And as a preceptor, after all the years of training, I can't tell. You get somebody comes and they want to become a monk, and you have some of them just, I think, wow, this is an amazing person. They make a great monk, and they can't last. And other ones, hopeless cases, absolutely hopeless, and they become great monks. I can't tell. And that's a wonderful thing. And even, sometimes you wonder, gay people, Give them a try. And I know one, and you know him as well. Great monk. One young man came in, clinical schizophrenic. Give him a try. And now he's a brilliant monk. I won't say who that one is because I'm sure he'll come here in a couple of years' time. Brilliant teacher. And he's clinical schizophrenic, has to take clozapine every now and again. But you wouldn't know. So it's great to give people a chance. And of course, just recently, women monks. Nah, they'll destroy the sasana, some people say. Give them a try and look what happens. Beautiful Venerable Upeka, serving you without any complaint. Isn't it great that we can give everyone a try? And if they don't make it, at least they try. Open the doors. The next one, when's it going to happen? A nice indigenous monk and nun? That's what I want next. Someone in the indigenous community to take robes. Yes. Okay. Anyway.
Thank you, Ajahn Brahm, for the beautiful and inspirational talk. Let's say 3 big sadhu to Ajahn, Ayopeka and Bante Saranakiti. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Okay, let's do it again. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu.
No, try again. Everything you've got this time. Come on. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu.
Yes, and if I may ask...